We're learning more details about the historic free trade agreement between Canada and the European Union. It's going to take up to 2 years for lawyers and other officials to put all of the fine print together in final form. But we now have an outline of the deal, and to discuss what it will mean for Canadian consumers and businesses, we put together a panel of MPs earlier today. Joining us are Erin O'Toole, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade, Don Davies, the NDP's International Trade Critic, and Marc Garneau, the Liberal International Trade Critic. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us.
Nice to be here.
Pleasure to be here.
So let's start with you, Erin O'Toole. And what about this report that the European companies will be paying 3 times less in terms of duty on the goods that they're shipping to Canada than Canadian companies will be going the other way? What about that?
Well, I don't know the specific report you're mentioning, but most of the phase-in periods for tariff reductions for certain industries are on a 3, 5, or 7-year schedule. That's allowing a transition period for all key sectors of the economy to not only adjust for the European Trade Agreement, but to really benefit from it. We've worked closely with industry to set those benchmarks, so that'll be the case for, say, automotive. But I think, you know, in any trade agreement where right with the coming into force of the agreement, you see a reduction of 98% of the tariff both ways. It's a huge win for Canada. Prices will come down for consumers and for families, and employment, certainly the estimates are 80,000 net new jobs from this. So each industry will have a transitional period, and those periods start once the final agreement is in place. So we're looking at anywhere from 3, 5 to 7 years, and those will start in approximately 2 years with the finalization of the agreement.
So Don Davies, now that we know more of the details of this deal, do you agree? Is it a good deal for Canada?
Well, there's interesting politics and policy around this whole CETA issue, I think, Mark. First of all, the politics are quite clear that ever since the Prime Minister jetted off to Brussels the day after the throne speech, the Conservatives have been trying to use CETA to change the channel on their political difficulties in the Senate, and that remains the case today. The facts are is that we still don't have a finalized deal, and we still haven't seen the text. While the NDP has said all along that we welcome progress on a deal with the European Union, no responsible party will take a position or should take a position on the merits of the deal until we have the final text in front of us and we can see exactly what's been negotiated. You know, I would describe the processes of the entire CETA negotiations by the Conservatives as being total secrecy, going to spin, going to a summary, going to a detailed summary. But we still don't have the actual text. And for a deal that is touted as the most comprehensive, largest agreement in Canadian history, I think that we need to see the actual text, because in trade agreements, details matter. And we can't really assess it until we have the text, and that's what the New Democrats are waiting for.
Marc Garneau, based on what you've seen so far, what's your assessment, and is there anybody who's actually going to be hurt by this deal in Canada?
Well, we have very clearly said that we are free traders in the Liberal Party, and we welcome the opportunity to do some free trading with 28 countries in Europe. Based on what we have seen, it looks like it is a good deal. We have not seen all of the details, and as with all negotiations, there are some winners and there are some losers. The question is, on balance, does it end up being a good deal for Canada? I'd like to wait to see the fine print. There are 28 countries involved, a lot of ratification to do, a lot of final sort of details to be worked out, but we are certainly happy with it. Whether it's the biggest free trade deal that Canada has ever negotiated is debatable. Certainly the free trade deal with the United States was a very, very large deal, A, because it was the first, and secondly because we do about 75% of our trade with that country, and our supply chains are intimately linked. In the case of Europe, it's an encouraging thing. We have a trade deficit at the moment with Europe. We hope to build on our trade with Europe to diversify. That's a good thing. I wouldn't say it's the largest trade deal simply because there's 500 million people. There's a lot more than that involved in claiming what is the biggest free trade deal.
Aaron O'Toole, let's go back to you. If the government is going to eliminate a bunch of tariffs and duty charges for European exporters into Canada, how is it going to make up the shortfall in revenue that will create for the government's finances?
The projections from this deal, Mark, are so profound that we don't foresee a significant reduction in revenues. And I'll tell you why. The opportunity of a $500 million plus market for our agricultural sector, for our manufacturing sector, for our forestry sector, for seafood, and the economic activity from that really will drive job creation, but it will allow export markets that have been held back to truly thrive. In my area of southern Ontario, some of the best apple growing and fresh fruits and vegetables, we've had tariff barriers of 8%, for apples, for instance, for many years with Europe. This is going to be a game changer. In Atlantic Canada, you've looked at a lot of tariffs on seafood that have added, 15 to even 20% to the cost of some of the best seafood in the world to being sold into Europe. So those have basically blocked real access to those markets. Those are going to come down. You're going to see us selling more goods and services to Europe. I also have to talk about my friend Don's comment. It's hard to say an agreement like this has been done in secret when we've consulted with many stakeholder groups from across the country. We've worked closely with each province and territory who've been a critical partner in this. In fact, our government has set a new benchmark for outreach and stakeholder engagement to get the best deal for Canadians. And look, the day the deal was signed, we had a sector-by-sector analysis. We released the final negotiated terms yesterday. This is an agreement where all of the essential terms are basically agreed upon in principle by the parties. For my friend to suggest that we're not really releasing much or that it's secrecy and spin is really disingenuous. This has been a true partnership with our provincial and territorial partners, and something that we're quickly telling Canadians about because it's such a great story.
So let's follow up on that. And Don Davies, maybe you can expand on what it is you want to know. What specifically are you hoping to learn about this deal before your party will give its final approval or rejection of it?
Well, again, we want to see the text of the agreement, and we want to take that text and we want to study it and analyze it. And we want to consult with many of the groups and Canadians that the Conservatives have not. There's been a lot of insider access to the secret negotiations that have gone on, but municipalities have been excluded, academics have been excluded, labor has been excluded, a lot of industrial sectors have been excluded, NGOs have been excluded, and Canadians themselves. I mean, I would ask all your listeners to ask themselves, have they been consulted? What do they know about the deal? Now, in terms of what remains to be determined, there's a lot of detail and key questions that remain unanswered right now. For instance, what are the rules of origin for a wide range of products like textiles? What is the phase-in period for the reduction of tariffs in agricultural products, which we still don't know? There's something here for financial services, which Canadians know was a key component in weathering the last recession. In this document here that was released the other day, it says that the Conservatives have negotiated a robust mechanism for protecting the ability to legislate in the case of the financial services sector. Well, what does that mean? That's a characterization of a clause. That's not the clause itself. So in order to determine how successful or not Canada was in making sure that our government has the ability to regulate the financial services industry, we have to wait and see what the text says. So those are examples. The last one is the investor state provision, which has people worried, says that it will generally be open to those who want to observe the process. What does that mean? We don't have a court system that says generally it's open to the public. It is open to the public. There's a lot that remains to be answered, and we want to wait and see what that says before we make up our mind. If it's positive, we'll support it. If it's not, we won't.
All right, Marc Garneau, I wanted to ask you about the dairy industry in Canada in particular. The amount of cheese that will be imported from Europe will grow significantly, and already there are some people who produce cheese in Canada saying it's going to cost jobs in the industry. Do we just have to look at that as there are going to be some winners and losers, or is there something specific that can be done to protect that industry?
Well, the government has already begun to talk with the dairy farmers of Canada because there is a hit for them. About 4% of the tariff-protected cheese market in Canada has been removed. So there is a hit for them. There's no question about it. But the government has talked about what they call compensation. I think the dairy farmers prefer to call it mitigation measures, so that there can be some form of taking into account the fact that there will be a change from that point of view. And I think the dairy industry is also approaching the government with some measures of its own. They have some suggestions to make as well, because they definitely are going to be impacted. And the government did promise a number of years ago that it would take some measures with respect to products that come in from the United States, for example, that are called pizza kits, that are mostly cheese, and that several thousand tons come in per year in a way that sort of circumvents the current rules. And the government has said it will deal with that expeditiously. So I think there has been some behind-the-scenes talking about how does one offer something to the dairy farmers who are impacted by this free trade deal.
All right, we'll have to stop there. Aaron O'Toole, Don Davies, Mark Garneau, thank you very much for your time today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.